Hey Chicks with Stix, it's Sarah working on the Secret Pass crochet along shawl. I'm using Sea Turtle Fiber Arts Reef Fingering, which is a fingering weight. It's 100% merino. I picked a 4mm crochet hook. And so I'm just actually going to start by making a slip knot. So I just basically wrap it around my fingers on my left hand, and I'm going to pull the tail through just to do that knot. I'm going to put it on my hook, trying to make sure that the working yarn is at the back of my hook rather than at the front. And then the first thing I'm going to do, so I hold it so that my working yarn is over my index finger. So I'm hooking around and I'm chaining 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the end of row 1, I'm going to slip the crochet hook back into that very first chain that I did and do a slip stitch. So basically I'm catching my working yarn, pulling it through and pulling it through. So it makes a little ring. So just in case you need to see that again, I'll do that again. Just pull it out. I make a slip knot first, like that. I'm going to put it on my crochet hook so that the tail is towards me and my working yarn is behind me. And I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to put my crochet hook into my very first chain that I did, the one closest to the slip knot. Oh. I'm going to snag my working yarn, bring it through both that last chain and the chain I just did, okay? And then it calls for turning your work. So basically turning your work is just literally turning it over. I'm still going to want my working yarn to be accessible, but basically it's just so that you're working the other way. Okay, so crochet hook still in the same place. You're going to make sure that you bring your yarn to the back, your working yarn to the back. Okay, it's not as important for this first row, or for the second row rather. So you're going to chain 3 next for row 2. 1, 2, 3. And then because you're double crocheting, you're wrapping the yarn, you're doing a yarn over around your crochet hook. You're going into the middle of that circle you just made. So wrap it first, into the middle, yarn over your crochet hook and pull it through the loop. So now I have 3 loops on my crochet hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 and yarn over again and pull it through the second 2. So I've made it a double crochet. And I'm going to do that again. So I yarn over first on my hook, through the loop, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, pull it through the first 2, yarn over, pull it through the second 2. So I've done 2. I'm going to do that again. Do 3. And, whoops. And 4. Okay, and then next I'm going to do 2 chains. So 1, 2. Basically it creates a little space. And then I'm going to do 5 more double crochets. Okay, so yarn over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, So it should kind of look like that. It looks like two little clusters of basically the equivalent of 5 double crochets with a chain 2 in the center. If you're not sure where it is, you can take a little my stash of stuff here. I have these little light bulb stitch markers. I'm just pulling one out, and I'm going to mark where that chain 2, it's called a chain 2 space. It's abbreviated in the pattern by a CH-2, and I'm just literally going to put it on where that chain 2 space is and shut it. Okay, so just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my work. So I'm literally just flipping, it's in my right hand right now, I'm flipping it over, and then I'm going to bring my working yarn so that it's in the back. So the first thing I do is I chain 3, which does take the place of a double crochet. 1, 2, 3. And then it calls for doing 2 double crochets in the first double crochet space. So that's doing 2 of them into the same stitch. So 1 and 2. And then you're doing a double crochet in every double crochet in the row below up to the chain 2 space. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then in the chain 2 space, there's 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So I'm going to do 1, 2, and chain 2, and 1, 2. Now that I've done that, I'm actually going to move this light bulb to where I just made that next 2 chain 2 space, just so I can tell where it is, because that becomes basically the center of the shawl. And then oh, okay, so I realized I did something wrong. Ha ha ha. Every pattern's a little bit different. That's totally okay. So I'm just ripping back to the beginning of the row, because my chain 3 I did as soon as I turned, okay? But I didn't double crochet into this base of that where the chain 3 came from. I double crocheted into the next one, and I should have in reading the instructions. So I'm going back and doing that. 1, oops. 2, and then 1 in each of the next ones. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm back to the chain 2 space from the previous row. So I'm going to do 2 double crochets. So 1, 2, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and then 2 more double crochets. 1, 2. As I say, I'm just going to mark that chain 2 space. Probably don't need to, because it's usually pretty easy to find. And now I'm going to double crochet into each of these previous. So if you need to see them, So that's the top of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that's at the very end is my chain 3 from the previous row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then into that chain 3 space, I'm going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. All right, so it's looking like this is going to be the top edge at the back of the neck, and basically we're doing a V. So now I'm going to turn my work. Okay? And literally I just flipped it over and I'm bringing my working yarn to the back. And now I'm on row 4, which is a repeat of row 3, which is similar to what I just did. So first I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. But I know I'm going to double crochet. I'm going to do 2 double crochets into this first stitch. So into this very first one. 1, 2. And then I'm going to do a double crochet into each of the double crochets in the bottom, in the row beneath. 1, 3, 4, 5. Neat. Okay, and I've reached the chain 2 space, so you can see that it's a space. So again, I'm doing 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and then 2 chains, 1, 2, and then 2 more double crochets into that same, whoops. 1, 2. And then I'm going to double crochet into each of the double crochets again. So and now I've reached the chain 3 from the previous row, and so I need to do 3 double crochets into that one. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that is the end of row 4. So you can see, sorry, it's almost the same color as my pants, that I've got a nice little V shape with kind of some teardrop shape. That's where the chain 2 spaces are from the from each of the rows. Okay, and now I'm going to turn my work. So literally I'm just taking it and turning it over and basically just flipping my working yarn so that it is in behind. So row 5 is just a little bit different. So I'm going to start with a chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And I'm doing 2 double crochets into that first double crochet from the previous row. So 1, 2. Okay. But the next stitch is a little bit different. It's an FPDC. It's a front post double crochet. So first I'm going to yarn over, but instead of going into this top part of the double crochet from the previous row, I'm going into the front post. So there's the front post there. The front post is, if you look at there's the top of the stitch, there's the post. So what I'm doing is, instead of going through the top part of the stitch, I'm going around the front part of the post. So to make a front post double crochet, I yarn over, I go around the post. So I'm going, going yarn over, I'm sticking my hook underneath from the right hand side to the left hand side, I'm yarning over and pulling it under, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the second 2 loops. So I'm going to do that in every double crochet from the previous row. So going through the post and double crochet, go through the post and double crochet, so what it creates is this almost layered kind of look. So I'm doing this all the way across to that chain 2 space from the previous row, and you'll see I've got my my yellow light bulb marker in the spot for that. Okay, so by doing into the front post, it sits, especially if you look at the back, it sits a little bit lower down and creates this neat little ridge, which when we flip it over will be even more obvious. So I've gotten to the chain 2 space, and in the chain 2 space, I'm going to do like what was done in previous rows. So I'm going to do 2 double crochets, whoops, 1, 2, and chain 2, and 2 more double crochets. 1, 2. So I'm just, before I continue, I'm going to move my marker for where my chain 2 space is, just to help me keep track. Okay, and then I'm going to continue on doing those front post double crochets. So into that front post instead of into the top. The rest of the way across till I get to the chain 3 from the previous row. And then I end with 3 double crochets in that, in the chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, and now I'm going to turn my work. So basically I'm just going to flip it from left over my hand. And so when you look at it, you can see from going into the front post of the previous row, okay, it makes this cool little ridge stitch. From the row previous. So the match with it is what happens in the next row, is the back post. Double crochet. So as you can see, I now have a nice cat backdrop that's added. We're at the beginning of row 6. So doing this time, instead of front post double crochet, which we did on row 5, now we're doing back post. And it's a little bit different, but it's more or less the same, and it'll create that sort of ridge stitch. So anyway, we start with the chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then 2 double crochets into that same first double crochet from the previous row. So 1 and 2. But of course, instead of going into the top, so there's the top of the next double crochet, we're actually going into the back. So you might remember from the previous row, front post double crochet, we were inserting our hook from the front and coming around the post. So this time we're yarning over, we're coming from the back. So you're coming from your right hand side, from the back to the right hand side of the post, going back under to the left hand side of the post, yarn over, you're pulling it through so that, whoops, of course it fell off. Try and do that again. So I've yarned over, I'm coming up to the right hand side of the post, going back down the hole next to the left hand side of the post, yarning over, and pulling this through, okay, and then yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2. So basically you're still completing it as you would normally. You're going to yarn over again, insert to the right, back down, and then complete the double crochet as normal. Yarn over, going to come up to the right hand side of the post, go back down the left hand side, yarn over, you're pulling the yarn so it might be a little easier to see if you look at the back. Maybe not though. Whoops. So yarn over, come up on the right of the post, go back through the left of the post, yarn over, pulling it basically around the post. Okay, and so you're going to keep doing these till you get to that chain 2 space where my lovely little yellow marker is. Oops. So if you kind of look at what I've done, so there's the ridge from the front post double crochets from the previous row. Here's, again, it's just sort of extending. It's making that lovely little sort of edged ridge. It's that texture that adds interest to this shawl. Oops. So I yarn over, I come from the back to the right hand side of the post, I go back to the back, the left hand side of the post, I yarn over, and then I complete the double crochet as normal. Come up from the back to the right of the post, back down to the left of the post, yarn over. Oops. Managed to hook that, so just one of the things I like about crochet is it's only one stitch at a time. And I'm at the chain 2 space. So now I'm going to do 2 double crochets into this chain 2 space. So 1, 2, and I'm going to chain 2, and then 2 more double crochets. And I'm going to move my stitch marker again. And again, I'm doing back. So I yarn over, I come up to the right of my next post, go down the left, and then complete the double crochet. Yarn over, come up from the back to the right hand side, go down to the left, yarn over, and complete the double crochet. Oops. So I'm continuing these back post double crochets again until I get to the chain 3 at the end of the row. So yarn over, come up to the right, go back to the left, yarn over, and then complete the double crochet. So it's called a back post because you're coming around, you're coming from the back and wrapping the stitch around the post. So yarn over, come from the back to the right hand side of the post, go down the left hand side of the post, yarn over, and see, you can see I just pulled it around the post, and now I complete the double crochet as regular. It's pretty. Oops. Okay, now I'm at that chain 3 space, so you can see when I kind of pull it. And so I'm going to do 3 double crochets into that chain 3 from the previous row. 1, 2, 3. So you can see here's the ridge from my front post double crochets, and then this next row that I've done is the back post double crochets, so it sits a little lower and it creates this neat sort of patterning. And now I'm going to turn my work, so I'm just going to flip it over. Thank you, Comet Cat, for being my model. And make sure that my yarn is at the back of my work. So row 7, I'm going to chain 4, which is a little different from previous rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to do 1 double crochet in this first double crochet from the previous row. And then I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip 1 DC. So I'm going to skip the next DC and then double crochet in the one after that. So I've skipped 1 in between here and then doing a double crochet. So my chain 1 that I just did previous to this is right on top of the one that I skipped. And those are in brackets, so that part in brackets I'm going to do again, basically to the last double crochet of this side. So I'm going to chain 1. Oops. Chain 1. I'm going to skip that DC and I'm going to double crochet in the next one. Oops. I'm just seeing I only went through part of that one from the previous row. There we go. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep doing that. So chain 1, skipping the one beneath, and then double crochet in the one following that. Chain 1, skip that one, double crochet into the next. Chain 1, skip this one, go into this one. Chain 1, skip this one, go into this one. So what it's creating is this lacy, airy sort of square section. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Okay, and now I'm at my chain 2 space. So I chain 1, I double crochet, I chain 2, and double crochet again into that chain 2 space from the previous row. I am going to mark where that one is just because it's a little harder to tell on this row where that chain 2 space is, although it is in the center of the peak, so it's not too bad, but just in case, especially on this row where it's lacy and it's chain 1s in between, and this one at the peak is a chain 2, it just makes it a little easier to find it the next row. And a chain 1, and double crochet into this first double crochet right after the chain 2 space from the previous row. And then I'm going to chain 1, I'm going to skip 1 and then double crochet into the next one. And I'm going to do that same thing again because it's in brackets. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Chain 1, skip this one, go into this one. Whoops, might help if I yarn over first. And double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into that one, so yarn over. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into that one. Chain 1, so the instructions say to do this to the second to last double crochet at the side. So this, I have one more double crochet and then my chain 3 space. So that I've done my last one. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to double crochet into that last double crochet. I'm going to chain 1. And I'm going to double crochet into that chain 3 from the beginning of the previous row. And that is row 7, and I'm going to turn my work. Okay, so row 8, I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do 2 double crochets in the first double crochet. So 1 and 2. double crochet in every chain 1 space and in every double crochet right up to the chain 2 space in the center. So a double crochet in the chain 1 space and a double crochet in the regular space. A double crochet in the chain 1 space and a double crochet in the double crochet. So I'm double crocheting into this chain, the chain 1 space from the previous row, and then into the double crochet from the previous row. So basically I'm doing double crochets all the way along. So what it'll look like is the row before is of course that double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, which creates this really lacy kind of look, and then I'm double crocheting, so it's back to some density to the stitches. Okay, so now I'm at the chain 2 space. And I'm going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets into this chain 2 space. Okay, so 1, 2, and chain 2, and then 2 more double crochets, all into that same space. 1, 2. And I know I probably don't need this, but I'm just finding right now it's a really helpful reminder where that chain 2 space is, so I'm just moving it. And then same as the other side, I'm going to double crochet into every double crochet from the previous row, as well as into the chain 1 space from the previous row. So chain 1 space, and the double crochet space, and the chain 1 space, and double crochet. Oops. And so you're going to continue in this way of doing a double crochet into the double crochets of the previous row, as well as into the chain 1 spaces from the previous row, until you get to the chain 3 space from the previous row. Or the chain. And I'm going to do 3 double crochets into this chain 3. Well, actually, technically, what I'm going to do is do it into, because it was a chain 4 from the previous row, I'm actually going to, if you look at it, so you can, if you turn it sideways, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4. So this third one, and that's so that there's a, that chain 1 space, basically. Okay. And then once more, I'm going to turn my work.